Fear not, fluffy bunnies, and enjoy the present moment. If anything's true, it's this: it gets a little worse before it gets a lot worse. That is, it gets hot before it burns. You choke before you asphyxiate. You fall before you hit the ground. And so it is with humankind. Despite the popular madness, that foolish perception that things are getting better, they aren't. Okay, for some people they are, temporarily, and at the expense of others. Whatever your situation, on the whole, the fires of hell have turned up several notches since we first started drinking bovine lactate all those millennia ago. Disagree? I've got proof. Firstly, let's make one thing clear. Facing the truth isn't being negative. Reality is negative. Altering your perception, no matter how well you do at filtering your own experience, will not change reality. At some point, it will bite you hard in the ass. Owning that fact is the mark of a mature individual. If you're strong enough, it will free you. Back to the evidence. One of the first tricks of Pollyanna statistics is to apply proportionate measurement to everything, like measuring suffering as a percentage of the total population. This is fraud, propaganda designed to make things seem better than they are. If there were 100 sufferers out of a population of 500, and now there's 1 million suffering with 9 million who aren't, do you think that justifies the situation? Human sacrifice your bag? It sure ain't mine. If 1 million people are suffering, and it used to be 100, things are worse. There's more suffering. Sure, suffering is a mixed bag, experienced in different ways. But let's dive into the facts before we start deconstructing subjective linguistic constructs. Around 12,000 years ago, there were only approximately 1 million people on the planet, probably. 1,000 years ago, only around 275 million. Now there are over 8 billion. Great, yeah? No, looking at a range of factors, there are, in total, more people suffering in a whole range of ways than there used to be on the entire planet. That's not good. It certainly isn't progress, unless you're evil. Then there's the little issue of deaths, because every birth leads inevitably to death. Or, as Sarah Perry titled her book, every cradle is a grave. Yeah, we all die. I know. It's the price of entry, not that any of us requested entry or agreed to pay. Each statistical death represents a person. Often, that person will have experienced horrendous and prolonged discomfort, pain and agony as they edged toward release. In most cases, they have had friends and family who watched them deteriorate and who were left behind. Some relieved, many broken-hearted. A good number will never recover from the loss. The rising number of deaths represents a tsunami of misery and distress. It's going to get worse too. We're running out of stuff, like clean air and water. Global water withdrawal has increased enormously. As a result, people are beginning to fight over water in greater numbers. Conflicts over water reached record levels in 2023. Life is a metabolic process. It produces waste. Here's how much rubbish we're making now. That crap gets into stuff like land and water. Ugh. We produce waste too. It comes out of our bladders and guts. And that gets into water too. In fact, there are now 1.7 billion people drinking water contaminated with feces. Yummy. Oh, and 94% of the world's population regularly breathes dangerous levels of air pollution. Another reason I know for a fact that this is all going to get much worse is because much of the current wealth people are enjoying has been created out of thin air, contractual trickery and legal chains. The world owes more in debt now than at any time in history. Global public debt, that is, the debt owed by all nations, is almost 100% of global GDP. The interest payments being paid by some countries exceeds their entire health budget. Nice little earner that. 20% of countries cannot pay their debt and are close to default. Worse than public debt is the level of private debt, valued at over 3 times the annual productivity of the entire globe. Enslave the entire world with debt. That's the real way to earn money. Of course, all those negative numbers aren't real, but while we honor that system, they have real consequences. Those huge numbers are a demand from the future, and the future can't pay it. Real wealth, actual stuff, is always tied to real resources. Whether it's mined lithium, oil for plastic, or just food to feed the wage slaves. If you want the future to pay its debt, those real resources need to increase without the debt increasing. 2 problems there. 1, the facts show that the debt will increase. 2, the world just doesn't have the stuff. Sorry, facts are facts. Decoupling is a delusion. It has been disproven by any serious research accounting for entire supply chains, energy usage, and waste production. People will still deny this. Some use teddy bears, others cuddly economics. I don't blame them. The truth is horrifying. After that gentle introduction, I want to introduce the real nightmare, a fact that might just explain why you know something is wrong with the world. You've always known it. A percentage of people are psychopaths. It's how it is. Along with the global population increase, that population increased too. So, we now have well over 350 million psychopaths worldwide. Woohoo! They're all over the place. In companies, health systems, police, the armed forces, working in care homes, hospitals, schools, farms, programming software, running food processing factories and medicine production facilities. They're in politics in high numbers, in the secret services, dealing weapons, selling drugs, serving in the Navy and the Air Force, wandering around your local supermarket. Heartless, immune to reason, hard to spot, impossible to screen. Discreet evil is their genius. Here comes the big kicker. Around 30% of people who wouldn't be classed as psychopaths have psychopathic traits, from mild to strong. No need for extensive hand-wringings and head-scratching, wondering how the horrors of the 20th century occurred, or why so many workplaces are toxic. The capacity is built into all human populations. It's not a bug, it's a feature. And as the stuff runs out and people are forced to compete hard to pay their private debt and taxed to pay their parents' public debt, those features will emerge with ever-increasing ferocity. Psychopaths play the tune. Psychopath wannabes dance the dance. Everyone else suffers. If you wanted to do anything positive for humankind and other life on Earth, you'd have to deal with the psychopath problem first. Otherwise, they'll hijack and contaminate everything you do. Personally, I don't see how it could be done. So enjoy the present as things get worse, because the future will be far worse. And for the sake of the well-being of your kids, just don't have them, please. If you have care and compassion to give, be generous with yourself. If you have some spare, go find something or someone who needs it. It might have zero economic value, but there's no shortage of demand.